Okay, welcome everybody to this month's installment of the SQL Pass community news. This is the HADR virtual chapter. First of all, we're going to start off with some news. First of all, please make sure to update your MyPass profile by June 1st. This will make sure that you are eligible for the 2015 Pass elections. There's directions here, just sqlpass.org/mypass. Just make sure review and complete your profile, and you'll be eligible. Next, we have a discount code here. If any of you are looking to attend the Pass Summit 2015 this October, and I highly recommend it, we've got a discount code there for you, and the price does go up on July 12th, so make sure to get in those expense forms and everything so you can go. Now, there are a lot of different virtual chapters out there. I'm very partial to this one and some of the others that I speak with, but there are a lot of great ones out there for you to attend. These are monthly. These are fantastic sources of information. So go to sqlpass.org, sign into MyPass, and you'll be able to select the ones that you're interested in. Now, we do have some ones coming up. We have the French one coming up on May 9th. We've got, actually, that was a couple days ago. We've got ours right now. We've got professional development, PowerShell, Hebrew, in-memory, and data architecture all coming up. We do have a lot of SQL Saturdays coming up as well. We've got Redmond, Atlanta, Rochester this weekend, Iowa City and New York City just a couple of weeks away. We've got a number of the international ones as well. We've got Lisbon, Buenos Aires, a lot of great ones out there. So please check them out. These are fantastic events. I know I speak at a bunch of them. I just absolutely love them. Volunteering opportunities. If you have any time at all, please look into volunteering with SQL Pass. There are a number of great opportunities out there, from SQL Saturdays to different events coming up. It is well worth the time. It's worthwhile. It's a great community. So stay involved. Sign up for the free Pass membership at sqlpass.org. We're out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and at sqlpass.org. So this month is, let's see, this is Transactional Replication with Con. So Konstantin Melamud is manager of SQL Server architecture at RDX. I've got a great number of just great information out there. I'll turn that over. There you go.
All right. Oh wait, what happened? There we go. Hi everybody. So as David was saying, this is a transactional replication, 10 easy steps to successful implementation. Mostly we're going to be talking about transactional replication itself. So a little bit about me myself. So I'm a manager of SQL Server architecture at RDX. Our company works with 400 customers worldwide on SQL Server environments, so we've basically seen and done everything there is mostly to do within SQL Server. So a little bit about RDX. RDX itself was founded in 1994, and then just like I said, we basically provide 24/7 support for all database platforms or major database platforms such as SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, Oracle EBS, DB2, and so on. So if you have any questions about our company, you can contact us at www.rdx.com. All right, so transactional replication. What you should already know about transactional replication, or for the sake of this presentation. So you should have a working knowledge of SQL querying. We're going to be doing a lot of T-SQL stuff just because some of this can only be done through the T-SQL code. And you should have basic understanding of replication topology. So how the replication part works. We're not going to explain all the agents and how they communicate to each other. We're going to go into some best practices, but you should have some basic understanding of the replication. So what are we going to cover today? So we're going to cover when should replication actually be used over other solutions. There's a whole bunch of other high availability solutions out there, especially with SQL 2012 and Always On, and other previous versions and still supported solutions such as mirroring, log shipping, clustering, and so on and so forth. We're also going to talk a little bit about initial consideration for configuring application. What should you keep in mind? How should you lay it out from the best practices perspective? but we're mostly going to concentrate on common problem with this transactional replication. So, I'm sure everyone knows the more complex the solution, more prone it is to errors, or it's finicky over certain things, and then you have to basically maintain it in order for it to work successfully. And the real objective is how to minimize the downtime when actually the problems occur. And there's 3 different ways to do that. So, I mean, you can like whenever there are drastic problems, of course. You can initialize a single article, you can initialize from a backup, or you combine the 2 methods. And that's kind of like the key things that we're going to cover. The default way, which is reinitialize the whole publication to get your data in sync, sometimes might not be feasible just due to the time required to do so. All right, so why would we want to use replication? If you wanted to have different indexes between your publisher and a subscriber, replication is a good thing. So any other solution will kind of mirror the database from one to another, but won't allow you to change it. So if you wanted to have a highly transactional side, minimally indexed, mostly configured for inserts, and your replicated side would be your reporting side, where you actually want to have a more heavily indexed that, so you actually can support the reporting functionality. Replication might be something that you want to consider. If you wanted to have a different security, again, between your primary transactional side and your reporting side, if you wanted to maybe give access to some developers to pull some data out, but you don't want to give them access to production, or any kind of security mechanisms that you want to implement in your readable secondaries or subscribers, again, replication might be something that you want to consider. Recovery model. So in a lot of places and with a lot of features, recovery model sometimes plays a much bigger role. So for always on and mirroring and log shipping, you're basically forced to go to a full recovery model in order to actually implement those features. With transactional replications, you don't have that limitation. You can actually stay in simple mode if that is your business requirements and your business practice is okay with having no point-in-time recovery. Then replicate, but you need to have multiple copies of your database across the place at almost real time. Replication might be a way to go as well. If you only care about a subset of data, so you have a 10 terabyte data warehouse, but you really need 5 or 10 tables that you actually report off. You don't need the other tables to sync up to your reporting instances. Again, replication is a great way to do that because it's totally article-based. It's not entire database feature. If you wanted to have custom functionality in your reporting instances, basically you have different store procedures, different functions, even different tables, and even different subset of data that come from other transactional systems to provide a more of a reporting data warehouse for your enterprise. Again, replication might actually be the way to go. And the other really cool thing is the replication can actually be used across different versions and editions. And there are, of course, limitations to that. You can't just blindly just throw everything. But it can be used across, publisher could be enterprise, subscriber can be standard, publisher could be 2008, subscriber could be 2014, and again, it's enterprise standard differences also play into that. And actually, the way we're going to set it up today or show it today, we're actually using 2 different versions of SQL Server. They're both enterprise, but that doesn't play into it at all. And lastly is money. Just because a lot of features require enterprise edition of SQL Server, which is, as the new SQL servers come out, that's getting more pricier and pricier by the minute, and replication does not require enterprise level of edition. The only thing that actually is required for, I believe, is peer-to-peer replication, which is not what we're talking about today. So you can get away with a standard SQL Server licensing model, which is substantially cheaper than enterprise. All right, so let's talk a little bit about initial considerations for your replication topology. So the most important thing is distribution placement. So the distribution database and distribution agents or distribution server there's three different ways you can configure it. You can configure it as a publisher-distributor model, subscriber-distributor model, or a dedicated distributor. And the key factor is really where you want the processing load to hit. If it's more important that there's as little impact to the production or publishing environment as possible, then you actually go to a subscriber-distributor model or a dedicated distributor. If your CPU load is really, really high on your subscriber due to your reporting, and you don't really care if you incur an additional CPU cost on your production or publisher side, then you go with a publisher-distributor model. If you have a very complex replication topology where you have multiple publishers, subscribers, and you want a centralized management piece that actually kind of handles all your replication needs, you go with a dedicated distributor model, where all the load is handled by the distribution server. The other thing is, the other thing that you will hear is a pull versus push subscriptions, which is really kind of plays into where the distribution agents are sitting. So you can, so if the distribution agent is sitting on a subscriber, that's a pull. If distribution agent is sitting on distributor, it's a push. So it's either the subscriber is pulling data out of the distribution database, or it's pulling data. Wait, did I say pull or push? Well, regardless. So if it's distributor is pushing the data, then it's a push. If the subscriber is pulling the data, it's a pull. Again, that's kind of like where the load is. Sometimes the security between, if you have like cross-domain replication, will play into it, and you have to do a pool subscriptions just because of the authentication mechanisms or firewall rules, connectivity, and so forth and so on. And we're also going to talk about agent security options. So agent security is how your actual agents are configured with security. You can do it with SQL Server authentication or Windows authentication. Again, if you're going cross domains, most likely you're going with secure SQL Server authentication just because you don't have trusted connections. Also, agent security options allow you to actually modify properties of how your agents actually run. So you can actually tweak the performance of your replication by modifying agent security options. And the other thing that you need to consider is other HA options utilized in your system. So a lot of times we've seen, especially in the older, before the 2012, is a hybrid initialization, utilization of the system. So a lot of times you would have a mirroring topology set up for a DR scenario and a replication set up for the reporting. And it's really important to know how all of those features actually play with each other in terms of transaction logger usage. So for instance, if you have mirroring or AG, until the AG or mirroring is fully synced and the transaction is released from the AG, replication won't even see it. So you might actually be really, really far behind, but won't know it from the replication monitor view, because to the replication, everything's in sync. It hasn't been released by the other high availability feature. So like the DR features are more highly available than the precedence to replication topology options. So what are the common problems with replication? Generally, they're kind of actually limited. So the most important thing is transaction log maintenance, and that's actually you can hit with other HA options as well, since everything is logged in a transaction log, and since it is an asynchronous method, so until it's actually pushed to the distribution server, the transaction log is not released, and you can actually blow it out pretty quickly if you're doing a lot of high volume activity. We've seen cases where actually replication can only catch up at night just because how busy the servers are. So your transaction logs are very, very large. If your transaction logs actually get out of hand, it will slow down replication even more, and then it becomes kind of like a perpetual circle. So transaction log maintenance is actually very important to a healthy transactional replication implementation. DML operation subscribers. Like I said before, I mean, the beauty of the replication that you're allowed to have custom objects and subscribers, unfortunately, that also gives you the freedom to modify the tables that are actually being replicated. And if you do that, and if you do it incorrectly, that actually can break replication and will break replication. And some user intervention have to be, and basically is required to actually get the replication back in sync. And Schema changes also sometimes can cause some serious problems, especially if you have to do a lot of intervention with replication and the metadata in the replication side gets out of sync, and then just all things kind of go south for you. A lot of times with older replication implementations, if you had identity columns in your tables, you can run into a lot of problems. It will just basically give you metadata engines. It's like the replication, the object doesn't match what the replication had in its system. Now, that replication does support adding columns or dropping columns from the articles that you're replicating. The only requirement is that you actually just add to the end of the table, and then should be able to replicate it if you have that selected as an option for replication. Now, for this presentation, we're actually only going to look at the problems related to DML and schema changes during this presentation. I'm not going to simulate a transaction log problem just because I don't want to shut down my own servers here. All right, so we're going to actually take a look at some of the replication failures, and I have set up, we're going to be using AdventureWorks mostly for this demo, and we're going from our SQL 2012 to SQL 2014. So our SQL 2012 is our publisher, and if I refresh this, you should see this publication right here. And this is subscribed to the same database on the 2014 instance. So we're using a subscriber distributor model just because we're actually switching editions, and the subscriber and distributor have to be the same edition. So this is one of the limitations that we're hitting. So the subscriber is actually sitting on our 2014 instance, the publisher is sitting on a 2012 instance, and the database we're replicating is AdventureWorks LT, just because it's a much smaller database, it's a lot easier to manipulate, not a lot of foreign keys, just easier for the demo purposes, but it could be done on anything. So basically what I'm going to simulate is some of the errors you can actually encounter. And the only problem with the replication itself, and I wasn't able to figure out how to do it, it takes about a minute for actually replication to show an error after you actually create one. So before, let me see, I'm going to run this, and if I have to basically do it correctly, what is going on? Oh, so syntax errors. Great, good job. So that's the right connection. I'm going to insert a value. And maybe I need to modify my link server. So now I'm going to try to insert values again. So I inserted one row. And this should technically break my replication model. There you go. So I basically forced it to do a double insert. So now I'm going to basically see in my replication model, I'm seeing that there was an error that occurred, and it's going to retry it for a certain amount of times, and eventually it's actually going to give me the error details. So after the retry, and it takes about a minute, so I couldn't figure out how to actually get that period down to like one or two seconds, just how the replication engine works. I said I wasn't able to figure that out. So eventually it'll actually give me the error. Come on, buddy. You can do this.
Hey, Konstantin, while we wait, I had a question.
Sure.
Will the slide deck and scripts be made available somewhere?
Yeah, sure. I can. Yeah, I can definitely send that to you guys to upload.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Come on, break. So that said, that's the only problem with this, the replication topology error demonstrations. It takes a long time to break it. I mean, it takes really quick time to break it. It actually takes a long time to show up. Oh, here we go. All right, finally. So what you end up getting is a violation of the primary key, because I actually inserted multiple rows in subscriber, and then I try to do the same row insert into the publisher. And when I try to replicate it, it basically gave me an error saying I already have a row in here with the same primary key. You can't do that. You're kind of screwed. So a lot of times that happens whenever you have like cab releases, and people are trying to do their diligence. They actually don't think about it and say, okay, I have a replicate environment, so I have to actually put it in both. And they try, and that's what happens. And so you can kind of do the same thing with deletes as well. So right now this was an insert. You can do the same thing with the deletes, where you actually delete. I'm going to insert some rows, and you can see that the replication is running correctly because I actually cleared the error. I deleted the row that was conflicting with the subscriber, so it actually was able to replicate it. Now I inserted 3 rows, and I'm actually going to delete in the wrong order. So I'm first going to delete from a subscriber, and now I'm going to delete from, actually I'm just going to delete 2 from a subscriber. Oh, fine, I'll just delete 1. Actually, what's my connection string? So that should break my replication. So now, since I deleted from a subscriber first, and I only deleted 1 row, so there was 3 rows inserted, but I only deleted 1 out of those 3. So when I actually tried to delete all 3 from a publisher, it succeeded on a publisher, but 1 of them was already gone on a subscriber. So it's kind of like a partial error. It's not the entire transaction that's failing. It could probably delete the remaining 2, but since it can't delete the whole 3, it's giving you an error. So it's actually none of those 3 will go through. So you basically can end up with orphan records. And what it will the error that it will give you eventually is saying that the row was not found at subscriber. Now I said it's all row by row, but since 1 row fails, the entire transaction can't go through. So any questions so far about the deletes and inserts? And said you can kind of do the same thing with the table columns. I just don't want to waste all the time waiting 30 minutes to actually see the errors. So the error is just like I was saying, the error that you're going to get is the row was not found at a subscriber.
Nope, we don't have any questions right now.
Yay, all right, I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you get it back in sync? I mean, like, you received all those errors, so what do you do now? Well, you can rip everything out and do it again. And actually, one of our clients had that as their solution. And it may be actually a solution if your databases are really, really, really small, and the full reinitialization will take, or reset up will take like minutes. And then you don't really care if you're locking your tables with a snapshot. Which was actually kind of shocking to us. And we're like, yeah, well, if it doesn't work, we'll just rip it out and we'll do it again until it works. I'm like, okay, that's brilliant. But it doesn't always work. So you can actually skip the commands and distributions database. You should not always do that. You just kind of know what you're skipping and why you're doing it and what the effect of that will be. But that's a viable option. You can actually modify your agent profile to ignore specific error. And again, that also will work. It will tell you that how many errors it ignored. It won't tell you which ones. So again, there's pluses and minuses to each of those methods. You can reinitialize. And there's different ways you can reinitialize your replication topology. So you can do a full initialization. So you basically generate a snapshot for the entire publication if you used a snapshot initialization method. Or you can do, if you initialize from a backup, you reinitialize from the backup again. So if you have a very, very large database and it's going across, sometimes it's better to initialize from a backup action, so being faster, and then do actually a snapshot initialization. And the other thing is you actually can just initialize one article that's having the problem, or multiple articles if it is the case for your scenario. But if you can actually drop a single article and initialize it just by itself without leaving the rest of the replication topology in place. So what happens when you actually skip errors in replication? So whenever you get an error, just like we saw in the screen, it'll actually give you the error message. So you have to identify the row that is having a problem. And then you can skip that transaction in the distribution database. Now, whenever you skip a transaction, the entire transaction will be skipped. So if it was able to do, if it's a multi-row operation, so let's say you're updating 500 records, and 20 of them were not found at a subscriber error. Whenever you skip the entire transaction, it'll skip all 500 of them. The other thing you can actually do, you can actually manually, based on error, try to resolve it. So you're not really skipping the transaction. So if it's a delete command, you actually manually insert a dummy record in the subscriber database, allowing the replication to delete that dummy record to move forward. And again, if there's a lot of errors, you could be there for a very long time. So sometimes skipping a transaction actually might be better if you don't really care. If it's a delete command that's been running and it's the error you get and that the row is not found, you can actually skip the error associated with the row not found for a delete, because if it's already not there, you don't really care. So what about ignoring errors in replication? So again, the same process kind of occurs. You identify the error number that's causing replication issues, and then you modify the agent profile to ignore that specific error. You will have to restart the distribution agent to do that. Once you do that, that will skip only the rows that are actually erroring out. So whatever it can do, it will do. That really would be working fine, again, on a delete. But on an insert and updates, just like the other method, you have to be very careful because, again, you don't know what really got skipped. So if you don't really care, that's fine. It'll tell you how many it skipped or what kind of operation it skipped if it's a DDL command, but you won't know which rows were actually skipped in the transaction. All right, so let's take actually a look at how we do that. So right now I should still have my error. And so I actually don't need to set up the error since I'm still in error. So you can actually use distribution database to identify the errors that you're actually hitting. So this is the list of the errors that actually have been reported by the replication topology. This is a stored procedure that you can use to run to identify the errors within a certain subscription. You have to, obviously, the parameters that are already pre-staged for you have to give it a publisher database, publication name, subscriber, and subscriber database name. And from what you can see, it said I get my error, I get the error code, and then I get an exact sequence number. And that's the three things that really we're going to need for the purpose of that presentation. We're also going to need command ID, but you actually can ignore that a lot of times. So once I identify my errors, I actually can get the exact sequence number that I'm trying to skip. I'm going to copy that. And I can actually tell it to skip that command. And you do that with SP browser repl commands. Or actually, no, I mean, you can actually see what the command is for browser repl commands. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the publisher ID. is slightly different than a database ID. It's actually, a lot of times they line up, but a lot of times they don't. So you actually want to identify the publisher ID specifically and then pass that in there, because it's a different command. I actually got nothing. Did I copy it incorrectly? Yes, I did copy it incorrectly because the numbers don't line up. All right, so this is what it's actually telling me, what it's trying to do, and this is, again, like, this is your exact sequence number, which is tied to your LSN with transaction log, and this is the actual call that it's trying to make row by row. So remember, we're deleting 5 records, and its command ID starts with 1 and goes to 5. So that's the 5 records we're deleting, and it's calling a speed delete customer table with the primary key it's trying to delete. So now if I wanted to actually skip the transaction, all I have to do is get that sequence number and run set subscription exact number, and it basically skips it. Now there's a bug on MSDN. What it tells you to do when you actually look up this store procedures to set the sequence transaction number to the next transaction in the distribution database, which is actually not true. You actually have to give it the transaction that you want to skip as opposed to the next one in line. So just keep that in mind. And I believe that the last 8 zeros are not necessary. So if I run that, it told me that it skipped it. So now you should be able to see that it's running again. Well, maybe not. Come on. Give me the error. Oh, it's a different. Now I get a different error. What do you know? So let's see what this error is. No, it's actually the same. So I'm still getting my error, but I don't understand why it's not actually giving me not letting me skip it. Oh, right, here it is. It took a little bit. So it's actually saying no replicating transactions available. So I was able to skip the error. Sometimes it takes 2 times to run that, I guess. Or maybe it was just trying to fight me. So now that we're going to try to do the same thing, and we're going to actually try to ignore errors. So I'm going to break it again. And it should show you the same thing. So eventually it's going to give you that there's a problem with the replication. Maybe not. Maybe I broke it. Oh wait, I didn't do it right. My bad. Here we go. Now I broke it. It takes me a while. So So you kind of do the same process, but instead of actually setting the transactions to be skipped, you tell it to ignore the errors within the transaction. And do I have the right time? No, I do not. So I'll let it update to the actual error, but it should be the similar error to this. So for what you need here is the error code that you want to try to skip. And the replication generally comes with a pre-built like agent profile for ignoring consistency errors. But generally what I would recommend actually is making your own and just skipping only the errors that you actually want to skip. That makes it, you actually be able to control it yourself as opposed to skipping all the default errors that replications already comes with. Okay, now we're going to have to wait our 90 seconds to actually drop it. Come on. Here we go. So I get my error. Now if I run that again, I get the same error code. I just wanted to show you that it actually did update. So I need to copy the error code, and now I need to go and actually modify my agent profile. Now you can do it a couple of different ways. You can actually do it right through the distribution agent as your replication monitor is open, and you can go to agent profile. And for some reason, it always comes up squashed like that. But you know, you can always expand it. So this is the profiles that actually come with replication topology. So right now, you always, I mean, when you create it, it will run on a default agent profile. And you can actually see what the settings are for the profile. And this is just, that's actually the full list of all the parameters. So you can actually set the query timeout, commit batch size, commit thresholds, BCP batch size for the snapshots. And that can come into play if you're trying to catch up replication or fine-tune it to just your workloads within your environment. But in order to skip that, and that's the agent I was actually talking about before, continue on data consistency errors. And if you look at that one, what you'll see is it's actually skipping a whole bunch of errors. And one of them is actually the one that we see. So we're actually going to use that one for just sake of, you know what, I'll create one. So I actually can take, you can use a different profile to modify it, and we can call it, you know, REPL demo as a base, and you can just modify it to say, skip this error. And I have to select that profile, click OK. And now all I have to do is actually just restart my replication. My distribution agent. And what you will see is that it skipped one error when applying transaction subscriber. It won't tell you which error it skipped, but it told you that it did skip one of the rows that actually is part of the transaction. So again, it's very useful if you're doing something where you don't really care what happens to the data, like a delete statement, because then you don't really care how many rows were skipped. But then either method will work. Any questions? No? All right.
No,
All right,
no questions. Doing
all
good.
right, sweet. So the reinitialization options. This is just kind of how you deal with errors. If you don't really care what happens to the data on a subscriber, but what if you do? So you can, again, just like we mentioned, you can reinitialize the entire subscription, which is a snap. You can do it either for a snapshot initialization, which is the default method, or a backup initialization. Or you can reinitialize an individual replication articles. You do need to modify your publication properties in order to do so. And out of the box, that only works if you actually use snapshot replication. If you actually initialize with a backup, reinitialization, I can't pronounce that word, reinitialization of individual articles does not work. It'll actually break it, break your replication. It's just not supported. So let's take a look at actually, I'm not going to show you how to reinitialize a full subscription. It's really easy. You just click on a publication, click reinitialize, run your snapshot, and stuff goes. So in order to initialize a single article, your publication actually needs to be updated to turn immediate sync and allow anonymous to an off setting. What you really need to turn off is immediate sync, but immediate sync is relying on allow anonymous property to be off. So you can't have immediate sync off if allow anonymous is on. And the reason for the immediate sync option to be turned off is that way you can actually drop the article and only snapshot a single article without actually immediately trying to sync it when you add the article into your publication. So that could be done either through a T-SQL statement or a GUI. GUI initialization is the same as normal publication setup. T-SQL is more commonly used because, again, you actually have more control. But you do need to pay attention to your publication options using pull or push or vice versa. If multiple subscribers are configured, you need to turn immediate sync back on once article is initialized. The other thing is, if you do have multiple subscribers and only one subscriber is having an issue where you actually need to drop and recreate that article or reinitialize that article, whenever you do that, that article will be reinitialized on all your subscribers. That's what immediate sync will actually, when you turn it off, that's what will actually happen. It'll actually push that article to all your subscriptions. So what about initialize from a backup? So initial backup, a publication needs to be updated to allow initialize it from the backup. That's what you call a no sync subscription. And in order, it has to be basically set up to do so or allow it to do so. It can only be done from T-SQL, so no GUI. You only have to do it basically through the queries. It does not require a snapshot agent to be run, which is sometimes a very large implementation. It's a plus. If you have errors for your entire publication, you can just initialize it from a backup because you've probably taken backups, or you should be taking backups. So you already have the backup, so you only need like a differential log to keep it up in sync. So actually, let's take a look on how to do that. So I'm actually not going to generate errors. It's just easier that way. Don't have to wait 30 minutes for the thing. But the other couple of helpful stored procedures is help publication. So what that will do is come on, am I in the right database? Should be. What am I missing here? Transactional demo. Oh, I'm on the wrong server. My bad. So if I run actually this command, it'll tell me the information about my publication. So it actually tells you if my immediate sync is on or off. So it's already actually off. It used to be a default setting to be actually on, and I think with newer version they actually automatically turn it off. But it's still worth a check. Not everyone's running 2014 and 2012 yet, so it's not mainstream yet. So on older ones they could have been set to 1. So that kind of lets you know what actually you're doing. So now, this is how you actually turn them off through the T-SQL. It's just change publication. You tell the publication name property and what setting it's a key valued pair. We actually can run that. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just going to tell me that it completed successfully. So in order to drop an article, let's say we're actually the problem, the article would continuously break as customer. So all I need to do is actually to get the application out of error is to drop a subscription to that article and actually drop the article itself. The key thing here is force invalidate snapshot setting to 1. So basically you're telling it to invalidate snapshot just for that article and not the entire publication. So if you forget that little bit and you do that, then when you actually run the snapshot agent, it'll generate a snapshot for the entire publication instead of just one article. So if I actually run that, what you will see is it actually does a lot of different things in all the tables it actually hits. And if I look at my publication now, you'll see that the article customers is no longer as part of my publication. It's available, but it's not published. So in order to reinitialize it, now that I dropped it, I can re-add it. And again, you're doing the force invalidate snapshot. And it added the article. And now what you do is you actually run SP refresh subscription. So you're actually refreshing the subscription with the article information that I added to my publication. And so what that has done, if you rerun the help subscription, what it'll tell you is it'll give you the information about all the articles that's part of this publication and what their status is. And what you'll notice is that the customer article is status of 1, meaning it's a subscribe, but it's not actually active. In order for it to be active, which is a status of 2 or synchronized, you actually need to run a snapshot agent. And once you do that, it'll tell you that it generated a snapshot of 1 article, which is what we wanted. So if you have problems, and by that time it actually should be already, yep, and it's already delivered it. So it actually copied the article, delivered it, dropped it, and synced all the commands within the with that article to the replication. So it's if you have a smaller tables that are causing you problems and your big ones are still in sync, it's a lot easier to just drop individual articles and re-snap those as opposed to doing the entire publication. Any questions about initializing a single article? All right, great.
Nope, no questions still. Still good.
All right, I like that. So now we're going to actually take a look from initializing from a backup, and sometimes I actually do run into problems with that. Sometimes it just does not like to run. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this publication, or actually delete the subscription to it. So now that I deleted the subscription, all I have to do actually, I need to modify, like I was saying, publication properties or subscription options, and I have to turn it to allow initialization from a backup. It's actually already set to true. So, but that setting actually has to be set to true in order for it to actually work. Set out of the gate, it's not. I think my script from it generates it actually creates that. So now I'm going to take a backup of my database. I'll make sure I'm on the right instance. And now I'm going to actually restore the same database to my subscriber. May be causing issues here. How about now? Who's connected? There we go. So now that I restored my database to the subscriber, it should be with no recovery, or actually with recovery because I actually synced that. Now, if you take that period where it's actually recovered and it's been sitting there for a while and the publisher actually gets too far ahead, they'll actually tell you it's too far gone. So now I actually have to add a subscription option saying I'm going to actually initialize from the backup, and I'm going to use my differential backup as the point to start syncing from. So like I guarantee that my databases are in sync up to this point coming from this backup. Did I run that? I'm on the wrong connection again. All right, let's try this again. All right, so now I added my subscription, and now I have to actually give it an agent. So I have to actually, it does just a subscription, now I actually have to create the agent. All right, so now if I refresh this, why is it not? See, that's the problem that I ran into. Sometimes it does not like to initialize. Yeah, let's try this again. I think I made the order change that was the problem. So which instance am I on now? All right, so I'm at the publisher. So I'm going to create the subscription again. And I believe this actually needs to be run on subscriber. And it's still not like in it, the initialization. Or you can do that. So actually I'm going to drop, it actually plays into it, so I can actually drop my wonderful article again. All right, I really have done and messed it up at this point. So I'm actually going to skip that demo just for the sake of time. Does anyone have any questions generally how to initialize an article from a backup?
have any questions about that. We did have a question about just scripting detail. But I think if you're going to skip that demo, we'll address that later.
Okay. Just because I don't want to troubleshoot it as part of the...
Yep, I think you're good.
All right. So generally said, there's two different methods. So you can either, if you have a snapshot publication, you can drop and add an article. If you have a backup, you can initialize from a backup, but you can't snap and initialize a single article. So, but what if we want to do both? I mean, really, that would be kind of like the really cool thing to do. So I actually had to, short of making my demos work, generally, that would be a good thing. I went for a whole bunch of codes for actually replication, and gproductions posts a whole bunch of like system code for system store procedures or some of the like a hidden system store procedure, so you can actually see what the replication is doing when you're actually adding a subscription. And I was able to find kind of like a loophole in the replication topology to allow you to initialize a single article while you're actually initializing from backup. Now, generally, it's really not supported by Microsoft. So again, use it at your own risk. And I said I'll post the slides on and I'll fix the demo for the initialize from a backup, so you actually try it for yourself. But it does work. The only thing is, if you do that a lot, like or repeatedly, sometimes you actually at some point you might want to actually do a reinitialization process, just because your distribution tables will get kind of like very large. So how do you do that? It's actually very, very simple. So all you have to do is you follow the same process as you did for the replication setup that you do when you do wrong slide. When you do a single article initialization, but instead of the refresh subscription, what you do is you actually generate a new subscription with exactly the same name and as the one that's already created. Normally that will error out. It will tell you that the subscription with that name already exists. But because there are two different subscription types, it will actually let you do this. And once you do that, you're actually able to run a snapshot agent, and it will generate a snapshot of the article you're actually trying to add, which works really, really well. Instead of basically what you end up doing is if you do a lot of those, you'll have multiple subscriptions on article basis. So each article will have its own subscription. So you'll have like a whole bunch of virtual subscriptions in the system tables for the distribution. Okay. So again, that's kind of all I had. I promise I'll fix the initialize from a backup script. I don't know what's going on with that one. But from the takeaways perspective, as I said, make sure you configure your topology to best suit your business needs. Make sure you know how to handle your basic replication errors, and know your options for when your reinitialization is required. What was the question that we were holding to the end?
The only question we had was just you were going through the scripts of recreating the publisher and subscriber via script, and they just want to know more detail as to what you were doing.
Oh, okay. You mean the?
I don't know if you just want to walk back through and just not the one that kind of got horked up.
Yeah, this is the. So I wasn't actually recreating the publisher. I was recreating the subscription. So the subscriber. So what I was doing is you run SP-add subscription. That's how you actually create a subscription to the publication. So when you run an ad subscription, you tell it which publication you're subscribing to, which subscriber what the subscriber server is, what's the destination database for the subscriber database, like where you want to put that. You tell it the type of the synchronization method. So this is the sync type. This is whenever you do initialize from a backup, that's a no sync subscription. And then you have to tell it actually where the device is for the database that you're using to initialize from. I mean, a database backup that you're using to initialize from. It could be a differential. It could be a transaction log. Actually, I think it has to be a transaction log. Maybe that was my problem. and update mode is just read-only. And after that, so that creates a subscription within a distribution. So whenever you do a pull subscription, you have to run it on both the publisher and a subscriber. So this would run it at a publisher and then create a subscription within a publisher and distribution database. And then you actually have to switch it and run it on the subscriber to create a pull subscription. If you're doing a push subscription, that step is not required. So you kind of duplicate the whole, like the pull subscription actually adds different feet, like you have to do different, like extra steps, so to speak. And once you create that on a subscriber, then you actually have to create an agent, which is the job that you saw me try to figure out what was going on. It creates this job, which is the distribution agent job. And you have to, whenever you create that, you have to, there's a whole bunch of different settings. Some of them are optional. This is kind of like the default. It tells you the frequency types and all like the different settings, like when is it active. It said most of these things are default. So if you actually look at SP Pull Subscription Agent Store Procedure, you'll see that those kind of like populated for you. And all those are the ones that you see here is the one that's configurable, where the publisher DB publication and distribution database. Did that answer your question? Or do you want me to go for more?
I think that, and part of the question was wrapped around the person who asked it will have to implement something similar at their workplace. Where would you recommend that they go for further knowledge around, trying to implement? Do you have books that you recommend? Pluralsight?
Pluralsight actually has a couple articles in Replication. Honestly, I would say, you know what? I had a couple of bookmarks on my other. For a couple of good sites for Replication. When I upload my presentation and slides, I'll just include that in there.
That'd be perfect.
Does that work?
I think that would be fine.
Okay.
And checking to see if, I don't know if David is here.
Yep, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Hey, David.
Yeah. No, I think that answered all the questions. So thank you a lot. That was fantastic.
Yeah, except that demo gods played tricks on me again.
Well, that's just the way it goes. You know how that goes.
Yeah, generally I do. And like something usually breaks on this replication presentation, just because when you're breaking stuff, it doesn't like
exactly. Cool. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak this week, and thank you everybody for coming to listen. We'll have the recording up a little bit later today or tomorrow, and if you want to send me the slides and the scripts, we'll get those posted as soon as we can.
Sounds good.
Excellent. So thank you everybody for attending, and I look forward to seeing you all again next month.
All right.